Hi everyone. Today's topic is shock. That's why I've placed this little kid showing her shock. So let us discuss it under the following headings: shock, introduction to the shock, and the types of shock, and the different stages of shock, and the compensatory mechanisms. What is shock? Shock, it is a life-threatening clinical syndrome in which there is inadequate perfusion of tissues associated with a relative or absolute decrease in the cardiac output. So, two important things that you have to know: shock is an inadequate perfusion of tissues. So, when there is inadequate uh, oxygen supply to the tissues, so it is also associated with a decrease in the cardiac output. So shock in general, it is of four types: hypovolemic shock, cardiogenic shock, obstructive shock, and then the distributive shock. So all these types of shock causes inadequate oxygen supply to the tissues, and which is also associated with some decrease in the cardiac output. So what is hypovolemic shock? When there is decrease in the blood volume due to hemorrhage, a traumatic surgical surgery due to any surgery, burns, and dehydration. And then cardiogenic shock. So when there is difficult in the pumping of the heart. So when there is myocardial infarction, congestive cardiac failure, and arrhythmias, and also in some valvular diseases. And then obstructive shock. So when the heart fails to relax, heart fails to fail in the diastole. So in the diastole, the blood flow to the coronary arteries decreases. So this obstructive can be caused in cardiac tamponade, that is um, when there is pericardial effusion, and also in case of pneumothorax. And then distributive shock, so that is when the blood supply in the periphery fails, so that is in the anaphylactic shock, so in case of sepsis, and also in case of the neurogenic shock. Let us discuss it one by one. So hypovolemic shock can happen due to bleeding. So any trauma can lead on to the bleeding. So hemorrhage, and during surgery, so heavy blood loss can cause the hypovolemic shock. This traumatic shock, it is a special type of hypovolemic shock. So in which there is associated neurogenic shock, so which is caused by severe pain, so that inhibits the vasomotor center. And then burns, in case of burns, so that also can produce hypovolemic shock. And then severe dehydration, so the loss of fluid during vomiting, and also the loose stools diarrhea. And then distributive shock, so it is also called as vasogenic shock or low resistance shock. So this type of shock occurs when the neural reflexes or the toxic substances cause excessive vasodilation within the vascular system. So especially in the capacitance vessels, that is the veins. So due to the vasodilatation, the size of the vein, so that increases. So the cardiac output decreases. So though there is normal blood volume, so that is why this is called as low resistance shock, and this is also called as warm shock. So because the skin is warm and not cold as if in the hypovolemic shock. So this distributive shock or vasogenic shock is can happen due to neurogenic shock. So when there is marked reduction in the sympathetic vasomotor tone, so during any deep general anesthesia or spinal anesthesia or in any brain damage or effects of any hypertensive drugs or even the postural syncope can cause the neurogenic shock. And also pronounced increase in the vagal tone of the heart can happen. So in case of any emotional news, that is the vasovagal syncope. So that is if you hear any um, shock news or anything, so in that emotional feeling, so there will be sudden vasodilatation which can cause this neurogenic shock. And then anaphylactic shock, so this is due to acute allergic reaction. So due to the allergic reaction, there will be large amount of histamine is released, and this histamine so can cause vasodilatation, reducing the peripheral resistance. So that also increases capillary permeability, leading to the fluid loss from the blood vessel. So anaphylaxis can produce the distributive shock. And then septic shock, so septicemia, so it's a condition where when the bacteria circulate in the blood, and these bacteria produces toxic substances so in the blood, and that causes fever. So in case of any infection, this septicemia may occur, like peritonitis and other conditions. So these bacteria can cause marked vasodilatation. So due to the peripheral arterial paralysis, and also it can cause sludging of blood. So that is mainly because of the agglutination of the red blood cells, and it can also cause DIC, that is disseminated intravascular coagulation. And then moving on to the cardiogenic shock. So cardiogenic shock occurs due to decreased pumping ability of the heart. So severe depression of the systolic cardiac performance. So that is a key factor in causing this type of shock. Since heart is not able to pump out all the venous return, so there occurs the congestion of the lungs and then the viscera. So that is why this is also called as the congested shock. So this can happen in case of myocardial infarction involving 40% or more of the left ventricular myocardium. So the other causes are the cardiac arrhythmias, congestive cardiac failure, uh, and any severe valvular conditions. So moving on to the obstructive shock, it is also called as extracardiac obstructive shock. So this can happen due to the impairment of the ventricular filling during the diastole. So this is because of the external pressure on the heart. So the ventricular filling decreases, that decreases the stroke volume, and so the cardiac output is decreased. So this can happen due to the cardiac tamponade. So that is pericardial cardiac tamponade, that is bleeding into the pericardium with the external pressure on the heart, and then tension pneumothorax, and then any cardiac tumor, and constrictive pericarditis, pulmonary embolism, all these can cause the obstructive shock. Since the stages and the clinical features of all the types of shocks are similar, but with only the minor differences. So hemorrhagic shock is of more common occurrence. So the discussion will be on the hemorrhagic shock. So the depending upon the blood loss, it is classified into four groups. So in class 1, so when the loss is only 15%, where the it can restore the blood loss on its own even without any intervention, but the intervention can speed up the process. So in class 2, it is 15 to 30% of blood loss, and in class 3 it is 30 to 40% of blood loss, and you have to replace some blood, where in class 1 and class 2 you can treat with only the crystalloid, that is the fluids, where in class 3 and class 4 you definitely need the blood transfusion, and in class 4 you can see the blood loss where it is more than 40%, where uh, so the treatment may not help if not intervened earlier. So let us discuss the different stages of the circulatory shock. So depending upon the severity, the circulatory shock can be divided into three stages. The first one is the compensated stage of the non-progressive stage. So here the blood pressure decreases only a moderate amount, and the compensatory mechanisms in our body so that can re-establish the normal blood pressure in the blood flow. So the next stage is the progressive stage. So here the compensatory mechanism is inadequate, and the positive feedback mechanism so develops, and the cycle proceeds to the next stage, or the the medical treatment can re-establish the adequate blood flow to the tissue. So in the compensator stage, the mechanism can compensate on its own, whereas in the progressive state, so the positive feedback mechanism starts and the vicious cycle continues if not intervened, if not initiated the treatment. So it will move on to the next stage, that is the irreversible stage. So here, or if all the system fails, so this is the refractive shock. So this can lead on to death in spite of any medical treatment. So treatment have to be given in the initial stages. So non-progressive, that is the compensatory mechanism, can cure if you give treatment, so that will uh, help to recover faster. Next one is the progressive stage where you need treatment. If you don't intervene properly on time, so it will move on to the next stage, that is the refractive period, where the patient may die. What happens to the arterial pressure in the circulatory shock? So what will happen? The first reflex mechanisms that increases arterial pressure is the sympathetic nervous system. So that helps the pressure to increase towards the normal. So the baroreceptors are the main activators of the sympathetic nervous system. So that is the first mechanism to jump in case of the decrease in the arterial pressure. So let us see the blood loss and the cardiac output and the arterial pressure relationship. So the baroreceptor reflex so comes in, so when there is a blood loss, and to compensate uh, the blood loss, it increases the blood pressure by eliciting more powerful sympathetic stimulation, and also the cerebral ischemic response when the blood pressure falls below. So the here there will be more powerful sympathetic stimulation, but it is not achieved significantly until the arterial pressure falls below the 50 millimeter of mercury. So the cerebral ischemic response is the last ditch stand when the blood pressure falls below 50 millimeter of mercury. So this response is activated and that gives more powerful sympathetic stimulation. So these sympathetic stimulation, what that does is, so it causes the constriction. So this vasoconstriction is more in the cutaneous, splanchnic, renal and skeletal muscle vessels. So this causes shifting of great amount of blood in the circulation. So venoconstriction on account of the sympathetic stimulation. So that also causes so increase the shifting of the blood from the vein so in circulation due to so that leads to the increased venous return and the cardiac output. So in kidney what happens is the afferent vessels they constrict and that reduces the GFR and also that decreases the urine output. So all these mechanisms so restores the blood pressure at such a level that blood flow to the vital organs, mainly to the heart and brain, is not affected. So the blood flow is provided to the vital organs. So at the cost of the blood flow to the skin, abdominal viscera, kidney, and the skeletal muscle. Hemorrhagic shock. So, so sympathetic reflexes like baroreceptor reflex and the chemoreceptor reflex so they compensate and then arterioles constricts in most parts of the systemic circulation. Veins and the venous reservoirs they constrict so that way that helps to maintain the venous return. So we know that venous and capacitance vessel which stores most of the blood. So constriction of the venous system that causes uh, that brings more blood into the circulation. So the heart activity increases so by increasing the heart rate and also the contraction. And then protection of coronary and the cerebral blood flow happens by these reflexes. So hemorrhage can cause decrease in the venous return and also the central volume blood. So decrease in the venous return decreases the stroke volume, then cardiac output that decreases the arterial pressure. So decrease in the arterial pressure. So most importantly, they act on the high pressure baroreceptors. Whereas when there is decrease in the central blood volume, so that decreases the atrial volume. So low pressure baroreceptors they are activated, and the when the arterial pressure decreases, that also decreases the regional blood flow. So the chemical changes happen, and it also activates the peripheral and the central chemoreceptors, and that activates the medullary vasomotor center. So that stimulates the sympathetic system, and sympathetic system, they act on the heart and increases the heart rate and also the contractility. So thereby that compensates and increases the cardiac output and restores the arterial pressure. So the sympathetic response also constricts the arterioles, so that increases the peripheral resistance, so that also increases the arterial pressure. And then venous constriction, so that increases the peripheral resistance and decreases the capacity of the veins. So this shift of blood from the peripheral veins restores the blood volume, and it also acts on the RAS system. So renin release increases angiotensin 2. So angiotensin 2 causes the vasoconstriction, and that also increases the blood pressure by increasing the total peripheral resistance. So in all, it increases the cardiac output and restores the venous return. Hemorrhage can decreases the arterial pressure, so that activates the baroreceptor. Baroreceptor, they act on the vasomotor center, so that increases the sympathetic outflow, so that increases the heart rate and contractility, thereby increases the cardiac output, and also causes constriction of the arterioles, which causes the increase in the total peripheral resistance, and also causes constriction of the veins, so that decreases the unstressed volume, so that increases the blood volume, thus increases the venous return. And also the RAS system is activated, so the angiotensin 2 increases the total peripheral resistance and also causes more reabsorption of sodium and water, thereby increasing the blood volume. And then it also acts on the capillaries, so there is a mechanism which is called as capillary fluid shift mechanism. So where when there is the volume of the blood is decreased, so from the capillaries, so the capillaries absorbs more fluid from the interstitial space, so that restores the blood volume. So all these things restores the decreased arterial pressure. So features that is in the hemorrhagic shock. So rapid, thin and thready pulse, that is a characteristic feature of the hypovolemic shock. Restlessness, so that is due to the stimulation of the brainstem reticular formation, and then by circulating the catecholamines. So this hemorrhage stimulates the secretion of the hormones from the adrenal medulla. And then intense thirst, so by activating the thirst center, conscious level maintained in the compensatory stage, and then cold and moist pale skin, so due to the decreased blood flow to the skin and also increased sweating. So this increased sweating is due to the increased sympathetic discharge. And then hypotension due to the decreased blood volume, tachycardia, tachycardia, and also there will be fall in the pulse pressure. So that is to restore the reduced blood pressure. And then tachypnea, increase in the respiratory rate when the chemoreceptors are activated. So what will happen if the sympathetic response is absent? What will happen if there is no sympathetic response? So without the sympathetic response, the person may die with only 15 to 20% of the blood loss. So which is very important. So in the first stage they may survive, but when it moves on, the blood loss when it the blood loss increases further. So without the sympathetic response, nothing will happen. No, without compensatory mechanisms, the person may die. Let us discuss the various compensatory mechanisms in the non-progressive stage. So the baroreceptor reflex. When the blood pressure is decreased, there occurs decrease in the impulse discharge from the arterial baroreceptors. So even when there is no fall in the blood pressure, even a small decrease in the pulse pressure is sufficient to decrease the impulse discharge from the baroreceptors. So that as a result, there will be an increase in the sympathetic vasomotor discharge to the heart arterioles and the vein as we have discussed. And then moving on to the chemoreceptor reflex. So acute hemorrhage that decreases the erythrocytes, so that further decreases the oxygen carrying capacity, so that stimulates this hypoxic state, stimulates the chemoreceptors. So these chemoreceptors, they also increases the vasomotor center to cause the same effects as these caused by the baroreceptor reflex. So fall in blood pressure below 60 millimeter of mercury, they can also stimulate the chemoreceptor reflex. And then CNS ischemic response. So that is when the blood pressure falls below the 50 millimeter of mercury. So this is initiated. So this will cause more powerful sympathetic stimulation. So these three mechanisms of rapid compensatory mechanism or short-term mechanisms. The reverse stress relaxation. So this is when the blood vessels to contract around the diminished blood volume. So the blood volume that is available more adequately, that fills the circulation. So this is when there is decreased blood volume in the vessels. So the blood vessels contract. Reflexly they contract. So by that the blood vessels can be uh, filled with the available blood volume. So that fills the circulation. So this is called as the reverse stress relaxation. And then increase secretion of renin by kidneys, and then formation of angiotensin 2, this angiotensin 2 constricts the peripheral arteries, so decreases the water and salt output. So both of these mechanisms help to prevent the further progression of the shock. And then increased vasopressin secretion, antidiuretic hormone. So they constricts the peripheral arteries and the veins, and also increases the water reabsorption. So increased secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine. So this is the catecholamines. They constrict the peripheral arteries and the veins, and also increases the heart rate. So this epinephrine and norepinephrine so is secreted by the stimulation of um, the adrenal medulla. So the mechanisms that restores the blood volume, so that is absorption of large quantities of fluid from the intestinal tract, and then absorption of fluid from the interstitial spaces, so that is by capillary fluid shifting mechanism, conservation of water and salt by the kidney by aldosterone and also the antidiuretic hormones, and by increasing the thirst and increasing the appetite for salt, so that can also restore the volume by drinking more water and salty food if available. So the non-progressive state, it takes 30 seconds to few minutes for the sympathetic reflexes to jump in, 10 minutes to 1 hour for the renin system to get activated, and also the antidiuretic hormone. So 1 hour to 48 hours. So there will be readjustment of the blood volume. So the short term, the sympathetic reflex is activated. The intermediate is the renin system and the vasopressin, and the long term, the blood volume is restored. Next is if the blood loss is more, the non-progressive stage moves to the progressive stage. The progressive stage caused by the vicious circle of cardiovascular deterioration. So cardiac depression or the cardiac failure. So this is due to severe decrease in the arterial pressure. So that too particularly diastolic pressure. So the coronary blood flow also decreases, and the coronary ischemia happens. So we know that coronary blood flow happens during diastole. So this weakens the myocardium and further decreases the cardiac output and also the cardiac blood flow. So this positive feedback causes the further deterioration of the heart and ultimately can cause complete heart failure. And then the vasomotor failure. So the blood flow to the heart and the brain is usually preserved when even when there is decreased cardiac output. but there occurs very severe fall in blood pressure. There may occur cerebral ischemia and failure of the medullary vasomotor center. So, failure of the vasomotor center, so that results in marked vascular dilatation. So, this dilatation can cause venous pooling, and that further decreases the venous return. So, the cardiac output also decreases and the blood pressure decreases further. So, this positive feedback mechanism continues. And then blockage of very small vessels, the pooling and sluggish blood flow in the microcirculation, that leads to the intravascular clotting of blood. Even if the vessels do not become plugged, the tendency for the cells to stick to each other makes it more difficult for the blood flow to happen through the microcirculation. So giving rise to a condition called as the sludged blood. So the decreased blood flow can clot the small vessels. Increased capillary permeability. So prolonged capillary hypoxia. So that results in increase in the capillary permeability, and so the large quantity of fluid begins to shift from the vessels into the tissues. The transudate gets into the tissues, so that decreases the blood volume and further increases the progression of the shock. And then release of toxins by the ischemic tissues, and then the cardiac depression caused by the endoxin. So where this endoxin comes in? So this is because of the prolonged vasoconstriction of the splanchnic vessels. So hypoxia happens in the GIT. So this hypoxic damage causes a breakdown of normal protective mucosal barrier in the gut. So that leads to the entry of intestinal bacteria into the portal circulation. So this bacteria in the portal circulation, so that deteriorates the liver functions. So all these bacteria and the endotoxins by the bacteria reaches the systemic circulation. So that leads to the septicemia and the toxicemia. And these endoxin cause the widespread failure of the arterioles and also the precapillary sphincters, so which causes the cardiac failure. And also these endoxin, they causes the extensive vasodilatation. Generalized cellular deterioration. So this generalized cellular deterioration usually happens first in the highly metabolic tissues. So the highly metabolic tissues are liver, then lung, and then the heart. So the liver, they are the first to be affected because you know that the hepatic cells have very high rate of metabolism, and liver is also the first organ that is exposed to the toxins, so from the intestine through the portal vein. So the active transport of sodium and potassium is greatly diminished. Great decrease in the active transport of sodium and potassium through cell membrane, resulting in accumulation of sodium in the cells and loss of potassium from the cells. So the cells, they begin to swell. Mitochondrial activity, so that is in the liver as well as in cells of many other tissues of the body, is decreased. Lysosomes, they begin to split in tissues throughout the body with release of hydrolases. So that causes a widespread of intracellular damage. Cellular metabolism of nutrients such as glucose is eventually greatly depressed in the last stages of the shock. The activity of some hormones are greatly depressed as well, including a marked depression of insulin action. Patchy tissue necrosis due to the poor perfusion, and then acidosis. So this is because of poor delivery of oxygen to the tissues that greatly diminishes the oxidative metabolism, and the cells switch to anaerobic glycolysis. So this leads to the accumulation of lactic acid in the blood. So moreover, the sluggish blood flow through the tissues also results in the accumulation of carbon dioxide in the tissues. So carbon dioxide dissolves in water to produce hydrogen ions, so causing the acidosis. So acidosis can cause vasodilatation, so which further aggravates the shock and the positive feedback mechanism. They start and they continue. So decreased cardiac output decreases the arterial pressure, so that decreases the systemic blood flow, so that decreases the cardiac nutrition and nutrition of all other tissues, and intravascular clotting may happen due to the sluggish blood flow, and then decreased nutrition to the brain, so that decreases the vasomotor center, so that initiates the vascular dilatation, so there will be pooling of blood in the veins, so that decreases the venous return, so that further decreases the cardiac output. So when the decrease in the nutrition of the vascular system happens, and that increases the capillary permeability, so shift of blood volume, fluid into the interstitial space, so that further decreases the blood volume. And when there is a decreased nutrition, so tissue ischemia happens, patchy necrosis may happen, acidosis may happen. So the entry of the bacteria can happen from the GIT. So they releases the endoxins. So these toxins can really cause the cardiac depression. So this cardiac depression also further decreases the cardiac output. So this is a vicious cycle which further deteriorates the whole clinical situation. So in this stage, the patients has to be treated. If not treated, so they will move on to the next stage. So this visual cycle, they depend on the intensity of the positive feedback mechanism. So non-progressive stage, so if there is more blood loss, it moves on to progressive stage. If not treated in the progressive stage, it moves on to the refractive stage. So this refractory shock is also called as irreversible shock. So in this stage, all the interventions are usually not effective. So in the progressive stage, it has to be treated properly. So already a series of positive feedback mechanisms. So they are all set in. So if not treated properly, so they will move on to the refractory stage. So depletion of high energy phosphate reserve. So the high energy phosphate reserve in the cells of the body, especially in liver and heart, are greatly diminished. So this ATP so gets degraded to ADP and then AMP and finally adenosine. So this adenosine they diffuses out of the cell and gets converted into uric acid. So they cannot again re-enter the cell. So new adenosine that is synthesized rather very slowly at a rate of 2% of the total cellular amount per hour. So once depleted, this high energy phosphate store, they are very difficult to replenish during the shock, and this is the main reason to the irreversibility of the stage. And this this stage they will not respond to any treatment. So non-progressive stage to progressive to the refractory stage. So it has to be properly treated. So here you can see, so the hemorrhage happens, the cardiac output decreases, so it has to be properly treated. So when 10 to 15%, even without any treatment, with the compensating mechanism available, that can be restored. In the progressive stage, uh, as it is, uh, that is a vicious, that has many vicious cycles. So that has to be treated. So if not treated properly, here you can see you have to give transfusion. If not given enough transfusion, if in the irreversible, so if it will move on to the irreversible stage, that is a refractive stage. So even if you give whatever transfusion you can, so initially it may seem that it responds, but it will further deteriorate, and so it is helpless. That is an helpless condition. Finally, the patient may die. So the treatment has to be initiated in the second stage itself. So in the refractory period, the arterioles they dilate, the venules they constrict, so fluid loss can happen. Skeletal muscle, thoracic pump, they fail, so that decreases the venous return. So there will be decreased blood flow through the cerebral and the coronary vessels. So the blood flow to the vital organs decreases. So myocardial insufficiency, so decreased cardiac output, that decreases the tissue perfusion. So bacterial invasion to the systemic circulation from the GIT. So severe hemorrhage, that is when the blood loss is more than 40%. So the blood pressure decreases, coronary blood flow decreases, the cardiac output decreases, so the myocardial contraction, heart rate, everything decreases, so the cardiac output decreases. So this is the cardiac failure. And then when the blood flow to the CNS decreases, so that causes the CNS ischemic failure, so no sympathetic system activation, so vascular dilatation, venous pooling decreases the venous return. And then so prolonged increase in the sympathetic discharge, so as a compensatory mechanism, so that causes spasm of precapillary sphincters and venules. So in the systemic circulation there will be more accumulation of metabolites, so the cytokines, they cause the vasodilatation, venous pooling decreases the venous return. And in the capillaries there happens a sluggish flow or stasis of the blood. So TIC can happen, that is a clotting. So that may decrease the venous return. In the GIT, due to hypoxia, there happens damage to the mucosal barrier. So more bacteria gets into the portal circulation. So they secrete endoxins. So that causes the cardiac failure, which decreases the cardiac output. Signs of shock. So the mean arterial pressure decreases. So the early signs are increase in the heart rate. So when the mean arterial pressure decreases only by 10 millimeter of mercury from the baseline, and then when the compensatory mechanisms happens when there is they are in the non-progressive stage, so the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system gets stimulated, ADH release, so the angiotensin and then the vasopressin, all these things causes vasoconstriction. So there will be decrease in the pulse pressure, but increase in the heart rate, pH decreases, so patient will be restless, apprehensive, that is because of the decreased cerebral blood flow. So if the bleeding continues, so that moves on to the progressive stage. So the signs of when the mean arterial pressure decreases to 20 millimeter of mercury from the baseline, so tissue and organ hypoxia happens, oliguria, and then weak rapid pulse, so acidosis, and then sensory neural changes. And then in the final stage, there's a refractive stage or irreversible stage. So there will be excessive cell and that organ damage happens. There will be multi-organ failure, so acidosis. So the patient may not recover. So coming to the treatment part, so treat the cause. We have earlier discussed about the different types of shock. So first we have to treat the cause of the shock, not as a whole. So replacement therapy, to start with we can we have to transfuse blood in the plasma. So if not available, you can use Dexcon solution as an plasma substitute. And then sympathomimetic drugs, so epinephrine and the dopamine to increase the blood pressure and then the cardiac activity. Head down position, so that is to increase the blood pressure, and then to increase the oxygen supply we can give the oxygen therapy. So no sedatives to be given, and overwarming can further deteriorate the condition. Glucocorticoids, they play a major role in treating the shock. So let us discuss the role of the glucocorticoids. They increase the strength of the heart in the later stages of the shock. They stabilize the lysosomes in tissue cells and thereby that prevent the release of the lysosomal enzymes. They also aid in the metabolism of the glucose. Coming to the summary, so glucocorticoids, so they initiates and they potentiates the vasoconstriction effect. So when a shock patient is transported to hospital, the patient should not be covered with the blankets. So it causes the cutaneous vasodilation and that may further decrease the blood pressure. So especially the shock patient. So dopamine is usually the preferred drug in the cardiogenic shock. So as that can maintain the renal perfusion. So the books to follow: G.K. Paul, Indu Kurana, Guyton and Hall, and the William Gannon. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.